Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
It looks like we've got people coming in from San Mateo, from London, from Jupiter Island, Florida, Melbourne, Florida. So coming in from
Colorado.
all over, Colorado, DMV. Is this this must be an area that's not like the Department of Motor Vehicles. Is what I'm seeing that twice.
Isn't the DM isn't DM
It looks like there's an
isn't that
echo,
like
gentlemen.
DC area? I could be wrong.
Portugal, Canada, Louisiana, Florida, Maryland, Taipei, UK, Virginia. So we've got people that are tuning in from all over. Now, you guys, today we've got a very, very special topic. Scott and I were talking a little bit about what we are looking at or as a company. Like, what are some things that we could talk about? Looks like we still have an echo. We're working on it, you guys. But we were talking about what are some of the things that we could talk about when it comes to bad echo.
That's right. I don't hear an echo on my side.
Leadership. And it might be the monitor. Nope. Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
You guys,
I don't.
No echo now.
I don't hear it on my side.
Oh, it's bad. Valerie's saying it's bad.
Keep going. Still echo. Okay, thank you guys. We'll keep working on Washington, D.C. is DMV. Okay, thank you. It's cleared. Good. All right. It's better now. Awesome. Thank you guys. So Scott and I were talking a little bit about what we could discuss when it comes to leadership. And there was a channel that Scott and I were on together where we were actually discussing that all of this comes based off of the values and principles that you have as a company and as an organization. And one of the things that we don't do enough of is talk about what those leadership principles and values are here at Nu Skin. In fact, if I were to ask you guys in the comments, how many of you could rattle off or tell us what those leadership principles and values are? I would dare say that not very many people could, if anyone. And so today we wanted to spend some time talking through what are these, specifically, what are the principles? What are the principles behind what we believe at Nu Skin, what drives us in the business? And this isn't just affiliates, this is corporate and affiliates, us together. What are some of the principles that we believe are foundational to success, not only at Nu Skin, but throughout life? Scott, any other thoughts that you would have on these principles? Like why should we have them? Why should we trust them? Why should we believe them?
Well, I think it's important to understand that these were values and principles we came up with together. There was quite a few team elites that were on a call with corporate, with Ryan and Steve Hatchett and Justin Kiesel and yourself. It was really interesting. I'm not like a wordsmith kind of guy, but it was fascinating to watch Kenton Worthington and Thomas Kogler and Rain Ho go back and forth on words, and making sure they had the right words in there with Ryan as he was, adding his input and everything. But it's important to understand that we co-created these. These were not just, hey, here's our principles, here's our values, deal with it. It was something that we came up with together. And I think it's really important that we understand, I guess, that basis first off.
Yeah.
And then really try to internalize them and use them, because they are, I mean, they're principles, meaning they don't change. It doesn't matter what system you're using, what team you're a part of. What matters is, are you using these to guide your business? Because they will work for any one of us in the business. And they also, hold strength and hold weight with corporate in how they operate on a day-to-day basis as well.
Yeah. Scott, I love that. And that is a really strong point to bring up is that these were developed together with leadership in the field and leadership on the corporate side to make sure that we're all aligned. And these are ways that we communicate, that we build, and what we believe in. Now, when I was in business school here at Brigham Young University, we brought in an executive from a company called Land's End. And if I remember right, I believe Land's End, if you guys know what Land's End, and in fact, tell me in the comments if you know.
I still have to use I actually just bought new school uniforms from Lands End for my boys.
Really? Well, that's great. I'm glad to know they're around. I know them because we got the catalog literally every month at Land's End from Land's End. But it was because of my dad. That's what he bought all of his clothing from was Land's End, specifically turtlenecks. And I think he had a turtleneck in every color under the sun.
I guess what's funny is I don't know your dad. I don't know what he looks like, but I'm just picturing you in a turtleneck now.
Don't picture me in a turtleneck. I tried
that.
That's
is what we should picture from now on.
It doesn't work. But I want to know, yes, Monica said preppy traditional clothing. That's Dockers. Basically it's like
think of Dockers pants and polos.
Yep, that's basically it. And I don't even know if it's still, I mean, obviously it's still around. You bought your kids' uniforms there, but that's beside the point. We had an executive from Land's End, which this was a big catalog company for so many decades. They came into my business program and they said, okay, you can have all these values and you can have all of these principles, but if you do not have stories as a company that represent or that exhibit these values and principles, they're dead. They mean nothing. So Scott, what I wanted to do today is talk through each one of these principles. We're not going to get into the values today. I don't think we've got enough time. But I wanted to talk about each one of these principles and then talk about the stories that we have that stand as proof point that that these are our principles that we truly believe in and we espouse. Because if we've got the stories, we know that it's part of our DNA. If we don't, it means it's something that we've got to work on. So let's jump in. The very first principle that we have on the top of the list is leadership driven, customer obsessed. Now, to me, it's a conjunction. It's built on two separate principles, leadership driven. So everything that happens at Nu Skin is coming through leaders, and leaders are the ones that drive the business, but it's also customer obsessed, that passion for customers, the love of customers, the relationships that we build with customers. Scott, do you interpret this any differently, or how do you look at this principle?
I guess I don't interpret it differently, but what I do, I guess to add a little bit of color to it, when you say we're leadership driven, let's just base it. What if we just based it straight on our compensation plan? You know, if you look and understand our compensation plan, we pay a healthy amount on the front end, but the bulk of the money that is paid out to our distributor base to selling the product is on the back end of the plan, which is paying to develop teams, paying to develop leaders, and paying to be a leader. Those are the ones that are going to make the most money. And so when you say you're leadership driven, it comes all the way down to the compensation. The more you understand the compensation plan, the more you understand that that's the focus of the company. That's what they're going to pay for. That's what they're going to do. Customer obsessed, to me, we have no business. If we don't have the best products, if we don't have products that people want, whether they make a check or not, if they're not willing to just buy our products because they gain value from them, then we have no purpose being here.
Yeah.
And I've built my business personally really based on subscription, and customers over the years, to the point where, 86 to 88% of my revenue every month is coming in on subscription, and the vast majority from customers, because that's how I look at, that's where the stability comes from. That's how I know I have something that can last a long time, because in my mind, if I can get the more customers I can get, the more people that love our product, the more stable my income is, the more stable my business is.
Yeah. I love that, Scott. And I agree that putting the money, you look where the money is, and we're paying leadership and paying more for leaders than any other company in all of direct sales. And so you can tell that that is an emphasis. Now, and customers, obviously, we spend a lot of time. We're going to talk a little bit about products. That's the next principle, products with impact. But, I often look at, and so here's the question, I guess, is are there areas for improvement in both of these principles? And if we did improve in these areas, what are some things that we could do that would represent leadership better, or that we could get more customer obsessed?
Well, I mean, you and I have talked a lot about this. I mean, we were on the core team call yesterday discussing, some of these things. There's always ways to get better, right? I mean, we learn, I think, the most from failure. We learn from, you know, but we learn from doing. And the more we do, the more customers we acquire, the more we learn that we're lacking in this area or that area. Yeah, there's ways to do it. From a distributor standpoint, how are we doing with follow-up? Do we contact our customers when they receive their new Lumi Spa, or when they receive their Prism? Or do we just sell them a Prism and hope they understand how to set it up and hope they understand that it works and we
Yeah.
never talk to them again?
Yeah.
Do we follow up with them, weekly, monthly, to are they using the product? Do they have problems with it? Different things. Can we walk them through that? I think from a distributor standpoint, from my standpoint, I know I can get a lot better personally at that. I think that also, comes back down to, I mean, it is one of our values, but it's 100% personal responsibility. That's key in each one of these areas. That's kind of this overarching value that you have to have, because you can't say, well, the customer didn't take care, or, the company didn't take care of my customer.
Yeah.
Like, well, what did I do to take care of my customer?
Yeah.
And did I give them a good experience? Did I figure out different ways to reach out? I remember there was someone on my team who, when a customer, when a and I don't know if he did this for every single person, but I remember specifically that a customer canceled their subscription. And instead of just being like throwing his hands up and being like, okay, well, I gotta go find another, he wrote them a handwritten note and put it in the mail and mailed it to him. And the customer was so kind of taken back by that he called him and said, well, you actually really believe in these products. Like, I didn't think you really believed in them. And he just said, you know what, it stands out because no one gets mail,
Yeah.
right? Everybody gets an email, but nobody gets a letter. And I thought that was such an interesting example. It's something I personally have never done, but it's something that I will always remember, that keeping those customers, that having that retention and taking care of your customers has to be one of our top priorities, or it's not going to work, right? We just got a comment that said, I send out birthday cards and thank you cards out daily.
Yes.
I've never thought about doing that, but that's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's just, can we find different ways to keep track of it? Because if this is the lifeblood of our business, then if we're not taking care of it or doing something to help out with it, and it doesn't mean you've got to be spending hours a day, going over this, but think about, again, leadership driven. What if you had systems in place for your team so that you took care of your own personal customers and they took care of their customers, and there was a way to do that, instead of just saying, well, man, darn it, Buck, what are you doing to take care of my customers?
Yeah.
Right? Like, because that overarching value of 100% personal responsibility doesn't allow for that.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you from corporate are looking at it saying the same thing. What can I do? What systems can
Yeah.
I put in place? What technologies do we have with the company? Like, those are the things that you and I've spent hours talking about and working on, and you have your teams working on those things to implement it and going through that. I
Yeah.
just there's a lot of really good examples in here. I do 2 times a year for every customer with a
Yeah.
sample, like
I
so
love
just
that.
different things. Yeah.
So, Scott, there are a couple of things you triggered, a couple of thoughts. One of my favorite books is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. And
Love that book.
that is one, when we talk about leadership, it's a principle, and when I look at leadership, it's leadership driven, and that's where the commissions are. It's there to reward leaders, but we also have to, as leaders and on the corporate side, be developing leaders. And leadership, there is some innate skills that come, but leadership can be taught and should be taught throughout society. And so understanding nobody's coming to save you. You can't wait for your upline. You can't wait for corporate. Nobody's coming to save you. You've got to take complete ownership. And once you realize that that ownership is on your shoulders, it's freeing, because now you're like, I can do whatever I want. And I can do
Yeah.
whatever I want that's going to be beneficial to my affiliates, my team, my customers. Oh, I've got complaints with my upline. Okay, this is how I would run my business if I were in charge. Do it. Do it. Like, if you take complete ownership, that is the very first step in being leadership driven. And I believe, Scott, what you were talking about, we've got to do a better job of teaching and training some of these principles, like time management, where to focus your time and energy. What do you focus on? Systems building, this
Yeah.
being customer obsessed and being able to manage customers. That's going to come down to having systems in place to be able to manage those customers. And
I mean, there's couple things there, a couple thoughts. I mean, I could talk about this for a long time, but um, first thing is uh, my upline, Dan McCormick. He has always said, for things to change, I have to change, and for things to get better, I have to get better. And anytime somebody starts talking about, well, this is going wrong or something like that, it echoes in my head over and over again. I mean, sometimes I'm like, thanks, Dan. Like, really appreciate that. But it's so true. Like every single time. That the other part is my business didn't take off until I stopped looking around me. I stopped looking at my upline to fix things, and I stopped looking at my downline to fix things, and I stopped looking at crossline and been like, well, why do they have it all figured out? I just focused on, well, what do I believe? What can I do? And what systems? I was reading this morning in the Cashflow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki, and he's like, if you're going to build a business, it's less about the product, it's more about the system. You have to focus on a system, and ultimately a system that eventually can operate without you,
yeah,
right? And so when you're looking at this for your business, the way I look at it for my business, what, how do I develop leaders? For me personally, it started with my upline saying, read this book, it's incredible. Read this book. I love this book. Read this book. Spend an hour a day reading this or listening to podcasts or listening to this. And and that wasn't really moving me forward. It got me to a point. It was when it switched to, I'm going to read the same book and I'm going to study it. And I'm going to do that with my group. And we're going to study these books, multiple days a week and answer questions and hold each other accountable. Like that's when it took off,
yeah,
right? I mean, we call it Mindset 5, but it doesn't matter what you call it. What matters is the action. And it was the difference between switching from one book to the next book to the next book to the next book to just simply saying, okay, here's a few books and we're going to study them over and over and over again because they relate to what we do here, not just leadership all over the place, but what works here. And
yeah,
that worked. And I've seen tremendous growth personally and within my team from that. But more importantly, when you get down to these other principles, is it duplicatable?
yeah.
Yes, I can grab anybody and plug them into that system and they can flourish, they can grow, they can develop from there.
Yeah, Scott, I love that. I've got a really good friend. He's not in direct sales, but he's built multiple seven-figure businesses and sold them and for seven-figure dollar amounts. And his biggest, I bet if you would ask him, in fact, I know the most recent business that is building up is one that's about systems. That's all about systems and helping business owners with systems. And his one book that that just, I think it's his one book. It's like his Bible for business. It's called The E-Myth. And the E-Myth basically goes through and talks about, for business owners, here's how you set up the systems that you need to be able to eventually extract yourself from the business and it'll run and operate without you. And he's done that in every single business that he's ever been in. And it's the same here. A good leader can see that pipeline. They're like, how are we finding customers? How are we retaining customers? How are we obsessed with customers? How do we facilitate customer obsession? How do we help those customers then transition, become affiliates? How do those affiliates get started? How do we make sure that they've got the basic skills and knowledge that they need to get going? And then once they get there, then it's like, okay, how do we transition them into leadership? What are the skills? What's the knowledge? What are the principles that they have to know to be able to graduate into leadership so that when they get into the ebbs and flows of business, not just direct sales, but in business in general, they know here are the triggers, here are the tools that I have in my toolbox to actually get through these ebbs and flows.
You know what rings true in my mind, but everything you're saying, I agree with. But so often in this industry, we don't think big enough. And the problem is like you can have all the systems in the world, but if you're only a brand rep, you're just beginning, but there's really no exit, from that, right? Like who is it that has the real flexibility in their life? It's Diamond, Blue Diamond, Team Elite. Like that's kind of where that is because they have enough people in the system, enough of a team in the system, that then you can pull yourself out. If you're a brand rep and you've been in this for 60 days, you can't pull yourself out, right? Like you've got to understand this is years in the making and it's not going to happen overnight. This isn't going to be, hey, I'm going to hit this hard for 6 months and then I'll pull myself out and it doesn't work like
Yeah.
this. That's not real life.
Yeah.
And so we have to be looking at this again, leadership, systems, customer obsessed, like, all of these things, and that kind of brings us into that second point with, products with impact.
Yeah.
I Guys, that's one of the things that, you know, from a distributor standpoint, we have very little say in, when it comes to that, right? We have to trust in Joe Chang. We have to trust in the science department. We have to trust in the innovation center. We've got to, the R&D labs, the studies, the clinicals, everything. And that's honestly one of the most attracting things to this business is because they continually reinvent themselves, because they create products with so much impact,
Yeah.
right? Whether that be LifePak or Meta or Collagen or Lumi Spa or the Galvanic Spa, Renew Spa, like Prism, coming from, I mean, I don't think people understand sometimes, or we just take it for granted. It's like, oh, here's this little device for $300. There's 100+ million, probably
Yeah.
close. I don't know the exact number, but I'd say, very close to 125, $150 million invested into that little $300
And
device.
years, 20
20,
years of
I
research.
joined the company in August of 2002 because we had just acquired the scanner technology from the
Yeah.
University of Utah 90 days previous, May 31st of 2002. So 24 years ago, they paid $10 million to the University of Utah to bring in this device that was bigger than the room I'm sitting in. 90 days later, I get scanned on the first device that's the size of half of a ping pong table. And they just continued to invest and continue to renew that technology to get it to where it is today.
Yeah.
I mean, just from my standpoint, not being a part of the corporate side, but from the distributor side, that's the company you want to align with.
Yeah.
Not one that just says, hey, look at this shiny object. Look what we have. but there's nothing proprietary about it. And it isn't about I've always looked at, and whenever I've been approached by other companies, one of the questions I've always asked is not what do you have now? What do you have coming?
Yeah.
You know, what's next?
Yeah.
And if they don't have any good pipeline of questions, you know, of products that are coming in, you know, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you know, you talk to Joe Chang, you know, and he gets like giddy excited. He can't keep a secret worth the darn, you know, because he gets so pumped and so excited, and he starts listing out things, you know, and he has his code words for him or whatever, but it's like, here's what's coming out next year. Here's what's coming out in 3 years. Here's what's coming out in 5 years. Here's what's coming out in 9 years that we're working on, you
Yeah.
know, behind the scenes with this university or that university right now. That's that product with impact, that pipeline that's been created here, that is second to none in this
Yeah.
industry. Like
Yeah.
no one has that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's something we can really rely on and really feel good about, you know, from a distributor standpoint, that the company takes care of that side so phenomenally well.
So Scott, there's Terry says, when is creatine coming? Oh man, Terry, we've got to talk. But I will say, you know, one of the big responsibilities that we have as a company, though, when it says products with impact, you guys have all heard the taglines over the years where it's like difference demonstrated or all the good, none of the bad. We believe in that. In fact, it's in the values that it's all the good and none of the bad, I believe. Maybe it's not. But we are like, it is a responsibility. And when, you know, Terry, when it says creatine, when's creatine coming? We have to look at a couple of different things. We have to look at who is our demographic, and we've got to find the product market fit that fits for the masses. And we also have to say, when we're saying products with impact, what is going to make the biggest impact? What are the biggest problems that this demographic is facing? And then we're producing products that are science backed, that will address those issues. And if we're doing products and focusing our time and energy, which is always limited, on products that have big problems, big pain points, then we're ensuring that we're developing things that have demand. That when you take them to the market, you guys have customers that will jump on board with them.
Buck, what do we think about it this way too? Like, are we looking at products that have a story life, you know, where I can only really talk about it for 1 to 2 years, maybe 3 years, which is a lot of products. There are a lot of products that's kind of where it's at. Or do I solve a big problem that I can talk about for a long period of time,
Yeah.
right? I mean, for me personally, I have truly focused my business on the scanner technology, on measuring nutrition in non-invasively in the body for 24 years. I don't know of another product in this industry ever that has had that long of a story life.
Yeah.
But the reason is because if you go to our lab, we have these machines, and I think there's 15 of them now roughly in the lab. They're called the high performance liquid chromatography machines, or an HPLC. And it means that is the only way in the world to measure the amount of antioxidants in the cells of the body, is to use that machine. And you have to cut 4 square inches of skin out of your body, grind it up like hamburger, and liquefy it, run it through that machine, or I can put my finger on a little blue light, you know, or a spectral array for 15 seconds and get the same score. Like, that is such a night and day difference, that solving that type of a problem versus, hey, I came out with a new shade of lipstick, you know, or
Yeah.
I've got a new way to create a lip stain.
Yeah.
We've had those products in the past too, but the story life, it's not as big of a difference because it doesn't solve as big of a problem.
Yeah.
And so when you talk to Joe, when he gets excited about stuff, he's solving really big problems
Yep.
that create incredible stories that are sticky,
Yep.
you know, that really bring people into the company. And then you have all of this other stuff, you know, putting in, you know, that we can add on to that,
Yeah.
but that's not the main story that's bringing somebody in.
Yeah. Awesome. That's perfect. And I think that leads into the next point, the next principle that we have, which is momentum powered. I think we should probably couple this momentum powered with long-term focused, results driven. Because when you look at, especially on the screen, when it says momentum powered, down below it says consistency over time. Momentum is built from getting more people to do the same thing over time. And that relates down to that principle down there at the bottom that says long-term focused, results driven. So when you've got this long-term perspective and you're building and having consistency over time, it's like going to the gym, you're doing same workouts over time, you're working all those different muscles over time, you're going to get results. And it doesn't mean that you're going to go to the gym in 1 month and put on 20 pounds of muscle. It happens over time. And it's the same here with direct sales. It's network marketing. This goes back to the customer obsessed piece. This is network marketing. We build networks. We're building relationships. And when we understand that that is the crux of everything that we do, those relationships with customers are like the most important thing that are out there. The relationships with people that are prospective affiliates, the most important thing. The relationships with our teams are the most important thing. And so to get the momentum powered, it's how do we be consistent with building those relationships with customers, affiliates, and just people in general, and then maintain those and have a system for maintaining those long term. That's where the momentum comes from, but it only comes in place if you have a long-term focus. You don't build a network in a month. You don't build a network in 6 months. It takes months, years to build out a network that is truly what you could look at and say, well, that is a blue diamond. That is a team elite network. It takes time to build up to that.
Well, you hit on a number of points that I'd like to kind of add to it if I could, but I, my sponsor used to always say, he's like, this isn't net hope, or net wishing. It's networking. Working in our business means we're talking to new people. It means we're doing the same thing every day. We're telling that same story over and over and over again. We're making those presentations. We're scanning people and getting customers. We're doing LumiSpa demos and acquiring customers and new affiliates. Whatever your focus is, but you're doing it consistently on a very consistent basis. The other thing is we say we're momentum driven. I think as we talk about the fact that we're doing this consistently, I hear so often that it's like, man, our company is about to hit momentum and we're just going to go, skyrocket. I am not a believer that, all ships rise with the tides. I don't believe that. Because you better be, on that ship paddling just as hard as anybody else, or got your oar in the water too. And there a couple examples have happened to me personally. In 2012, I think our company was at like 1.7 billion in wholesale revenue. In 2013, we did something like 3.2. It jumped that big year over year. My check grew $0 that year, 2012 to 2013. So the company grew by over $1 billion in wholesale revenue. My check didn't grow. So where was the momentum, right? Well, that growth for the most part was in mainland China where I didn't have any business. My oar was not in the water in China rowing, and taking advantage of that. In 2016, 2017, 2018, people started talking about and working with social media. And that just really, started to take off. I'm not a social media guy. Like it didn't resonate with me. And I watched all of these people. I watched people like Becca Farr come out of nowhere and just absolutely crank, and absolutely demolish, any check that I had coming in. But the fact of the matter is like it didn't that momentum that the company was seeing, that didn't affect me because I was not in the boat oaring with everybody else. Momentum comes again from consistent daily action that we each have to take. Now, is the story easier to tell when the company's growing? Yes. Is it easier to show, show, hey, look at our stock or look at this or, all of that kind of stuff. Yes, that makes my life easier, but don't be mistaken that just because we're starting to grow, that you're going to grow too. And I think too many people don't make that connection. And I think it's really, really important that we've got to look at that and say, okay, how does that affect me? Now, at the same time, there were people on my team that took the, social media, for instance, and really ran with it, and they crushed it. From that 2018 through the pandemic, we had teams in Colombia and Europe and and here in the United States that were doing amazing. And I grew a little bit from that, but it wasn't because of my effort, right? And I stayed consistent doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with one or the other, but we have to understand those principles. We understand that just because, this person over here is growing doesn't mean I'm growing.
Yeah.
And I mean I think especially in network marketing, people, try to gravitate to that, or hold on to that or be like, "Oh man, look how many people are in my downline." Yeah, but what are you doing to get paid on them?
Yeah.
Or how is that coming together and all of those other things that you were talking about with there.
So Scott, the principles that I think we can take away from this is that we are momentum powered, but that you have a choice. Everybody has a choice. They're not employees of New Skin. This is a volunteer army, and you
Yeah.
make the decision of whether you want to put your oar in the water or not, and you want to paddle. And sometimes you paddle like crazy, you get through the rapids, and sometimes you're not. But you make the decision, and momentum comes from those leaders that are digging in and taking ownership and driving the organization and building out the network. So
Yeah, that there was, and I don't remember the exact stat, but I remember being on a call with you and Ricky a couple months ago, and you were talking about brand rep growth and brand rep creation in the United States. And you threw out the percentages, and I don't want to throw them out here because I know I'll botch them, but we had grown month over month in brand reps in May and in June and in July. And you threw that out there. And so I guess what I would say is, and what I then talk to my team about is, are you growing as a team by that same percentage? Because if you are, then you're holding pace with the company. If you're doing less, then you're not growing like the company. It's passing you by. If you're doing more, then great. You're exceeding the company's, growth and you're out there leading. But we each need to look at our own teams anytime we hear those numbers. Anytime I hear, oh man, there were 1,000 people in this meeting, in my head, it's how many were on my team that were in
yeah,
that meeting, because that's all that matters to me. I don't
yeah.
get paid on the 1,000 people that were in the meeting. I get paid on how many people were on my team that were in the meeting and that got moved forward or got put into action because of that meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, that's a really good point. And that's what we look at internally when we look at all these metrics is like average sales per affiliate, when we look at the ratio of how many affiliates converting to LOIs or converting to brand reps. We look at how that the country is doing overall, or the region is doing overall. And then we look at the individual organizations and saying who's operating above average and who's below average. And then how can we work with those leaders and help them understand where they lie? Do they need to improve the selling, the recruiting, or the onboarding and help more of those new affiliates that are coming in be able to get to LOI and brand rep? Or the ones that are being successful, what are they doing to help get there? So really good points. Let's jump into the next couple. We've got Innovate. So Innovate as a principle says we innovate. It's in our DNA, always day one at New Skin. Reinvention is the mother of progress. So here's the question that I've got for you, Scott, because we've talked about systems and how systems allow you to get, it's basically giving people a recipe for success is what a system is. But how do you have innovation in this? I got this question this week, and it was an interesting conversation. A gentleman that was an engineer in the military asked me this question is like, are you afraid with more systematization coming into your business, that means innovation will slow down. And I told him no, and I had some specific reasons why, but I want to hear your thoughts on this.
So, okay, a couple things. So first off, when when building a system, most I have for 24 years operated in what they call a top-down approach, meaning that if I talk to somebody for the first time, I'm most comfortable talking to them about the business opportunity associated with Nu Skin and Pharmanex over than I am more so than I am talking to them about just a product that they should take. I have learned from my errors, times change, times evolve. What worked for me in 2002 cannot work today. It's a different economy. People think differently. I mean, just from the sheer standpoint, in 2002, the stat was, I think only 4 to 8% of people out there were open to a side income, a side gig, if you will, or secondary source of income. That number today is over 84%. So just in and of itself, like that changes the way in which you should talk to people. But here's the other thing I've learned is they say 80%. I think it's closer to 90 to 95% of people out there feel most comfortable talking about the product and what this product could do for you and giving it a LumiSpa demo or a Renew Spa demo or measuring them with the Prism, yeah, and showing them those numbers. They feel more comfortable doing that. That's more natural for them.
Yes.
Okay, so number one, that's been an innovation in myself, if you will, of something I've had to change, not because I want to talk to people differently, but because I have to create a system where the 80 to 95% are most comfortable.
Yeah.
We never had a system like that before.
Yeah.
And this principle, honestly, I learned from Thomas Kogler, and it was multiple conversations to kind of get that understanding. Where for me, it was, talking about the business or talking about the product. It met with actually scanning them with the Prism for me.
Yeah.
And then from there forward, it was always the same. Do
Yeah.
they have a product experience? Do they love the product? Do they want to be an affiliate from there?
Yeah.
And we move forward,
Yeah.
right? And you can do that at different speeds. The other thing is in there, it says it's always day one. That is so crucial, so important because it is day one in your business when you get started, right?
Yeah.
Someone when it's day one, they're never more excited. I tell my team all the time, when you sign somebody up as a new affiliate, they are never more excited about the opportunity than that moment,
Yep.
right? They might be nervous, they might have some hesitation, but if they weren't excited, they wouldn't have signed up,
Right.
right? And so you have to take that and you have to put that excitement into action and you got to be moving that forward, and making that happen. Then there's something that happens usually in my mind, I tend to see it happen when somebody hits Ruby and it shifts to, well, now my team's going to do it. Right. And I'm going to sit back and I'm just going to watch if Buck's going to make this thing happen. And oh man, like this is when that freedom is going to, happen. It doesn't work that way.
No.
Right. Like, and what does happen is when people back off at Ruby, their team backs off. They're like, well,
Yep.
if Scott can back off, I can back off.
Pace of the
You
leader
know?
is the pace of the team.
Right. And so until you get to the point, there's an old Greek mythology, and I always call it Icarus, and I think that's probably wrong, but there's a guy that's pushing the boulder up the mountain and stuff, and it always falls back on him. But there's a certain point in time, and in this business, it happens. There's a certain point in time when you get enough leaders, you have enough brand reps, you've built up this customer obsession base. You've getting to the point where now all of a sudden it's like you push the rock over the top of the mountain and it starts to go on its own. And what that means in this business is you have leaders that don't care if you exist or not. They feel like they understand the system. They understand what they're doing. They can handle all parts of the system with or without you. And that's when all of a sudden, hey, you know what? There's a little flexibility. Most people never keep pushing to get to that point.
Right.
And so if you always have to think it's day one.
Yeah.
And so why am I personally sponsoring new people today? I've been in the business for 24 years. I've been a team elite for 22 years. Why am I sponsoring new people today? Because I think the opportunity is better now than it was when I got started. I see the vision of what could I do moving forward. You know, maybe I'm not satisfied with where I am right now based on the family I have and where I'm at. You know, like all of those things come into play. It doesn't really matter why. What matters is, am I at least spending maybe not 100% of my time anymore because I have a big team, but for me personally, I look at it, I better be spending 20% of my day every day contacting new people,
Yeah.
inviting new people, doing assessments, sponsoring and growing teams. If
Yeah.
I'm not doing that, then my business is eventually going to go backwards,
Yep.
right? It just is.
Yep.
The I just, I mean, again, overarching principle, the
Yeah.
value is, 100% personal responsibility. The last principle is radical truth,
Yeah.
and whether you want to hear about it or not, but the radical truth is this is not a business that you build for 5 years and then retire and it pays you forever. That doesn't work. It will always contract if you do that.
Yeah.
And I don't want my business to contract. I want it to keep growing. Like I think right now, the next 5 years is a better time than the previous 24 years. I think number one, I know what I'm doing a little bit better, but the timing in the market, the products with Prism for me personally, and then the other products we have coming in the pipeline, like this next 5 years is more valuable than the previous 24 for me.
Yeah.
And so if I sit back and be like, okay, well, it's so valuable, it's such a great opportunity, I'm gonna let my team handle it. It will never happen. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna get out of it what I want or what I could.
Yeah.
And for me personally, like, the you look at like heaven and hell for me personally, like hell is thinking, what if I had?
Yeah.
It's looking back and being like, what if I had just done this, or what if I had been a little bit better here? Like that internal battle, that's the part that hurts, right?
Yeah.
And that's the part I don't want to sit back in 5 years and be like, man, what if I had? Because
Yeah.
because any meeting that I have been in the last 6 months to a year, I have felt it where it's more of a new skin doesn't need Scott. They don't need me. They're going to move on, do great, with or without me.
Yeah.
And so it's more of a, do I want to be a part of this?
Yep.
Do I think I can add to it? Do I think I can get mine out of it?
Yeah.
Like that's where I'm at personally. I'm not looking at it saying, well, man, if I just sit back and do nothing, that Charlie will do the same, right? Rain Hose, he's gonna back off. He's not gonna worry about it, or Alan Nagao. Like no, those guys are gonna go crush it, whether I spend another day talking about new skin or not.
Yeah.
And I can then look back in 5 years and say, man, look what we accomplished. Or I can look back in 5 years and been like, wow, look at their lives, look at what they accomplished, and I
Yeah.
wasn't a part of it.
So, Scott, a couple of things that I wanted to just summarize there. One, with the duplication, be as passionate about the business as you are about your favorite product. If we look at the business as a product and start thinking about it in that light, it changes our perspective on how we think about the benefits and how we are passionate about sharing maybe our favorite product, whether it's Prism or Life Pack or New Biome or Collagen. We all feel comfortable talking about those products. We should have that same comfort level with the business. And that's where the duplication comes in. Duplication also comes in with having those systems in place to be able to help people find customers and maintain those relationships, building out
Well,
that network.
put a plug in of something that came out today, right? If you go in your back office today and you go, I don't even know the exact part. I should have I should have known exactly where before I said it. But there is now there is now a tab in there where you can learn, study, and even take a test on all of the Prism related products in one section so that you understand the products, how to talk about the products, what facts and figures, we can say and fit in line, and how that's all proven. We've never had that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so that's something that the company's put out. Why? Because it's duplicatable,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, it's always been, well, my upline knows it. Scott's been involved in the business for 20 years. He'll answer those questions. That's not duplicatable,
Yeah.
right? Like there's still a time and a place for that as well, and to do three-way calls with your upline and everything else. But to learn and to take responsibility and understand it yourself, you've now created a system that, and your team has created a system that is duplicatable that would work for everybody.
Yeah. That's in the learning center, you guys. So everyone's asking, that's go into VNG and go into your learning center.
Thank you.
And there's all of these, the content
I
that's
brought
there.
it up and then I was like, oh shoot, I just blanked where it is.
Yeah. You guys, this has been a great call. And you got in the comments, please let Scott know how much you appreciate him being on with us today and talking through some of these principles. We didn't get to go into detail on all of them. There's so much that we could be saying about these, but I think probably some of the biggest takeaways from today are, we believe in leaders. And as a leader, you have to build in place and have systems. And systems allow for duplication. They allow for people to be product or customer obsessed, that allow them to take our products that make an impact to the world. That allows for innovation in ways that you're taking them to the market. And then the radical truth of always being open with your uplines, sidelines, downlines, and being truthful about what needs to change and how you move forward, being truthful with yourself so that you take ownership and move your business in the right direction. You guys, this has been an incredible broadcast. And Scott, thank you so much for being our guest today and being on.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, send us notes. Let us know what you're thinking about, where you want some help, what you're concerned about when it comes to leadership. Let's dive into this more, and so that each and every one of you can be that leader for your organizations, to be the next team elite and to help other people follow in your footsteps. With that, thank you.
Buck, thank you also.
Yeah.
Thanks for hosting these calls. I know you got it. You got a ton on your plate. There's a lot going on, a lot of ways you're getting pulled. But to take the time to do this every week, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you and everything you bring to us. So thank you.
Scott, thank you. I am obsessed with leadership and passionate about leadership. And to me, this is one of the best ways that we could do this, is coming together as a mastermind like this and having discussions about what makes true leadership here at Nu Skin. The more that we talk about it, the more we focus on it, the more leaders we'll create. So you guys, Scott, everybody that's joined us, have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
It steals my sight.